Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our annual community meeting. I'm your mayor, Jessica Sloan. Our city council members and staff are really excited to interact with you tonight. First, I'm going to go through some introductions here. We've got our city manager, Jim McCann. Our vice mayor, Stephanie Moulton-Peters. Councilmember Jim Wickham. Councilmember Sashi McEntee. Councilmember John McCauley. And I know she's not up here, but I did see our county supervisor, Kate Sears. There she is in the back. We've also got a bunch of our staff here. So in addition to all the wonderful folks you've been talking to for the last hour and a half, and who have been providing all these wonderful snacks and drinks, we've also got our Director of Public Works, Andrew Poster. Our City Librarian, Angie Brenner. Our Director of Finance and Human Resources, Eric Erickson. Our Superintendent of Recreation and Community Services, Sean McGrew. Our Fire Chief, Tom Welch. Our Director of Planning and Building, Vin Smith. And our Mill Valley Police Department Chief, Angel Bernal. So since we saw you all here last year, some of you might be new since then, but since most of you were here last year, we've done a whole lot of things that I could take this time and present on, but would be here all night. What we'd rather do is really have this be an opportunity for you guys to talk about what you're interested in and give you some time to interact, ask questions at the microphone, or fill out the comment cards, which you saw up front. If you've got a comment card, if you could please bring them over to City Clerk Kelsey Rogers. She will happily grab that and bring that up to us so that we can read out your question and make sure you get a good answer. There's also an opportunity to write your email address down on there, so if for some reason we don't get to it, we'll make sure to answer via email. So I'm gonna weigh in on 4 topics before we get to the questions and answers and just kind of quickly get through them. These are the topics that are indicated over there to be of your highest interest, most of them. If you didn't get a chance to put a sticker on the board at the community engagement table, there's an opportunity to do so that we know what issues are most important to you. And then once I've kind of given you the high level on these issues, you can also drill down in your questions and we'll be happy to get more in the weeds and give you some more details. So the first topic, I'm sure you'll all not be surprised, is traffic. We've done a whole lot on traffic over the last few years. This remains a huge issue here in town. We recently did a survey regarding traffic and communications, and we got over 650 responses. So like I said, traffic is a big priority, and the council and city staff are taking this issue very, very seriously. Last year, we received a report from the Traffic Task Force, and we've taken action on a couple of items that they suggested we go ahead and take action on. The first is that we've coordinated with the Mill Valley School District, County of Marin County Transit District to continue funding for the 2-year school bus program. How many of you guys have seen the school buses around here in town? All right, hopefully your kids are riding it, grandkids are riding it. It's a great way for us to cut down on traffic here in town, especially those cross-town trips that so many parents were having to take. Other items that we've worked on are such as traffic signal coordination, installing lane delineators, preventing U-turns where they lead to backups, and studying long-term improvements at the East Blythedale 101 interchange and some other hot spots here in town. We've got some good news for you. The initial studies in fall of 2016 indicate that weekday conditions were mostly improved, while significant improvements were experienced along both travel corridors during the weekends. We've implemented measures such as the school bus program, we staggered the bell times in coordination with the schools, and made this traffic signal improvements. So we know that this is a huge issue, we've got more to do, we've got more ideas to try, and we agree with you guys that it needs to be fixed. The second topic of interest is the steps, lanes, and paths. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about steps, lanes, and paths. It was a big news item earlier this year, and the council made this a huge priority in the beginning of our year. So we've put some really important protections into place for the city's steps, lanes, and paths network. We're continuing to make progress on a 9-point action plan that was approved by the City Council in January. In March, the council passed a resolution that established an official SLP inventory and map, as well as strengthened enforcements against SLP encroachments. The third issue that comes up a lot when talking to residents is Miller Avenue. Uh-oh, I hear some boos. Well, the good news is we're in month 11 out of 18, so we're over halfway done with this project. Thank you guys for your patience. So this is really a huge project. I'm sure you guys know it's about $18 million project. It's the biggest road project we've ever had here in town. Someone told me it was one of the biggest here in Marin. Accomplishments in the past 11 months include utility upgrades, new curbs, gutters and sidewalks, drainage improvements, new parking regulations, sewer repair, and street realignment. Now, a lot of that stuff is below the cement, so you might be looking at it and saying, well, what have you guys done? But pretty soon you're going to be actually able to see the progress as you drive down or walk down or bike down, as we prefer, Miller Avenue. Our upcoming work includes paving this summer, then restriping, including the buffered bike lanes, installation of flashing pedestrian crossings, landscaping and rain gardens, lighting and street furniture. So we're looking forward to a Miller Avenue that is safer, more efficient, and more enjoyable for all the users, whether they're on foot, pushing strollers, visiting businesses, shopping, just driving down the street. The fourth topic of interest is affordable housing. In January, the City Council adopted a priority project to develop an action plan to promote workforce housing and a strategy to protect existing housing stock. Many of you know we have a workforce and an affordable housing crisis here in town. Most of the folks who actually work here in town and serve our community every day simply can't afford to live here. Earlier this month, the City Council received a presentation on an affordable housing impact fee, and we're taking the next steps to address affordable housing, including workforce housing. We've asked the staff to change the inclusionary regulations so that when you're building units, 25% of them have to be affordable. We've asked for an affordable housing impact fee for anybody who's building over 2,000 square feet. They'd be paying $10 per square foot. Anybody building over 3,000 square feet would be paying $20 per square foot, so that we can actually create an affordable housing fund and use that money in the future to create workforce and affordable housing. We'll be holding a workforce housing workshop later this year, and I hope all of you attend and contribute. So now to the main point of our community meeting, a chance to hear from you guys. This is how we'd like to proceed. We'd like to, you can use the comment cards as I mentioned, and you can bring them up to the mic. If you have a comment card, you can either hand it to Kelsey or just raise it in the air, and one of the two runners will bring them up front. We're going to give 2 minutes to each speaker, and our administrative assistant, Becky Murray, we should all give a round of applause for as well. We'll keep track of the time here in the front of the room in order to allow as many speakers as possible. So you're welcome to use your 2 minutes as you see fit. Statements are welcome if you like, and if you have a specific question, please go ahead and ask that. We do ask that you limit yourself to one question so that everybody who came tonight can get a chance to speak. Please don't come back to the mic for a second question until everybody in the line has moved through for their first one as well. Once everyone's had a shot, we'll see where we're at for time. And we'll also stick around after the meeting for those who are interested in continuing the dialogue. So please line up and let's get started.
I yield my time.
Okay, changing the subject slightly. I'm here representing Mill Valley Community Action Network. My name is Peter Brown. And I'm asking the council and our group is to endorse Senate Bill 54. I understand the council's reluctant to take a stand on this legislation because they feel it's not a local issue, and I'm going to try to convince you it is. SB 54 would implement statewide sanctuary protections for migrants in California. Mill Valley is home to an estimated 730 undocumented residents who could be detained and deported without so much as a hearing. Under the Trump administration, deportations are up 38%, but deportations of non-criminals is up 156%. Many of these Mill Valley residents have families, which means there's likely 1,000 or more Mill Valley residents who today live in terror of an immigration raid. They can be picked up anywhere, at any time, for any reason. Add to that the hundreds more who work in Mill Valley every day, building our houses, tending our yards, cooking our meals, watching our children. This is a local issue. Not to mention that if SB 54 does become law, and I hope it does, and it's working its way through the legislature now, it will apply to the operation of Mill Valley and all public agencies in the state, including the Mill Valley Police Department and School District. You can argue that it's a good thing to do that, since it'll codify the police department's existing policy of avoiding immigration enforcement. But either way, it will apply here in Mill Valley. To me, that means it's the council's absolute responsibility to take a stand on Senate Bill 54, and we urge you to support it. Thank you.
Does nobody have any questions? We can read from the comment cards as well, so we'll probably just start mixing those in.
Hi, Art Chironi, you have my card there. Just a specific question. I've read in the newspapers that the city's thinking of signing up with Marin Clean Energy. And my question, the article indicates that if the city does so, that will opt all the citizenry in. And I'd just like an answer whether that would occur, and if it did occur, if we'd be emailed as to when that takes place. That's all.
So in addition to being city council members and serving for the city council, we each also are appointed to several of the joint power authorities. So I will kick this question over to Councilmember McEntee, who sits on the Marin Clean Energy Board.
Is it on? Okay. No, it wouldn't opt everybody in. It was whether the question is whether or not the city of Mill Valley, as a customer of excuse me, of Marin Clean Energy, would then switch to the deep green option. So that's what would be under consideration at budget time, and that would not opt everybody in. Each person individually has to opt in, or at the time that you had to opt out, but it wouldn't do anything to any individual accounts.
Peter Richmond, Mill Valley, 39 years now. I wanted to comment on the first gentleman's suggestion about the sanctuary status bill and why I think we should definitely consider it, forgetting about the claim that people try and say, well, it's not a local issue. Mill Valley has a long and honored tradition of doing things that are quote-unquote not a local issue. Back when most of us were a lot younger and in college, Vietnam was a big issue. Mill Valley was the first city in the country to make a motion opposing our involvement in that war. Unfortunately, not enough people followed so quickly enough, but this is a golden opportunity to show where we stand and take an honorable stand on helping people.
So I do know that there are quite a few people here tonight to talk about SB 54, and I think it might be a good idea. We had a presentation recently when we were looking at our anti-hate ordinance, or our community building tolerance and respect ordinance that we passed. We had a lot of folks asking questions about us as a sanctuary city as well, and what our status was, and if we were interested in it. Our police chief gave a really great answer then. I'm going to call on you and see, Chief Bernal, if you can go ahead and give the same answer.
So, with regards to Prop 54, our stance from the police department here in Mill Valley is that we don't get involved with regards to where a person is from. As we are applying the law, as we are providing any sort of service, whether somebody needs assistance, help, they're breaking the law, or they're a suspect or a victim, we're there to handle whatever the type of situation is at hand. In our investigative practices, we do not ask where somebody's from. It does not have any bearing on the investigative aspects of what it is that we're doing. I think to do so would cause a lack of trust amongst the community members, but we also don't want to get it into a situation where we're precluded from providing criminal assistance with any other type of law enforcement agency.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you. Other questions or comments? Or we can turn to the questions card as well. Oh, go ahead, Francis.
I'm Francis Kelly, and have lived on Matilda Avenue for longer than most of you are. And I worry about what is called Alto Way. Now, this used to be a lovely little creek. It is now a terrible weed patch, which it only came because it's sort of neglected and hasn't been attended. I would like to have, it's a fire hazard, I would like to have the goats come to clean that up for good and all. It now is waist high, and I cannot possibly make a defensible space behind my house because, in the first place, I can't get out there anymore. It's too risky. I would simply like to have goats. And other than that, thank you for having this meeting.
All right, and I also want to point out that we can bring a microphone out to anybody else who needs, or of course there's the comment cards, so you don't have to necessarily get up to come to the microphone. Feel free to raise your hand and get a comment card or a microphone.
Hi, I'm Sue Collini, and I have what probably be an unpopular opinion. The cause of the flooding a little bit is, not that I disagree that there's global warming about there, but I've lived here up in the Chandler's area for 50 years, and I have watched the bay fill in with marsh. It was almost completely water all the way up to East Blythedale. And as it's filled in with marsh, I see that the silt coming down from the rain has filled in, and you look at the bay at low tide, it is very thin. You know, it goes down and there's a lot of silt and mud in there. And flooding on Miller Avenue and in Manzanita have increased in the last few years. And I don't think there's any place for the water to go, and I wondered if the city has considered or has worked with any public agencies to think about dredging some of that silt that's in there as a stopgap measure. It's not going to stop the increase of the water in the long run in 100 years, but it could reduce some of the flooding in Manzanita and other places around. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll have our Department of Public Works Director come answer that question for you. And Andy, if you want to grab a mic.
Sure. Thank you for that question. That's the second question I actually received regarding flooding tonight. I'm happy to announce that on June 5th, we're actually bringing a recommendation to council to award a consulting contract to an engineering firm to help the city complete a flood master plan. This is something that's been in the work for a number of years. We received funding from Flood Zone 3, and we just went back to Flood Zone 3 and actually asked for additional money. But the master plan is going to look at our existing conditions, some of the issues with our storm drains, some of the issues with the bay, our conditions causing the flooding, and help develop solutions for what could mitigate that. So I'm sure this is something that they'll be looking at, and we'll be bringing a report back to council and the community in the coming months.
Just to, I just make a quick comment on that, there were some of you in this room, I think were in this room a few weeks ago when the county put on their game of flood, their sea level rise presentation that explained some of the issues that are going on, and had the game of floods, which you can get to on the county website. Do either of you, Maureen, do you know what the county website is for game of floods? MarinSLR.org. If you want to go online and look at Game of Floods, it's really cool. You can do kind of a simulation of what you would want to do in the case of a flood, because it's not just about does it flood, is it a 100-year event, is it a 50-year event, and there are different mitigations that you can take on that have different costs and different efficacies. And it's very illustrative, I think, to look at this and see kind of, well, this impacts this over here, well, then what are we going to do about that? So as we, as this contractor that will hopefully develop our flood control master plan works, we will want to get input from the community on what people want to see. And there are many, many ways that we can go about this. So I think that's a really good place to go if you want to get educated on that.
Good evening. My name is Bill Lang. I live at 101 Cornelia Avenue, and I would like to invite each and every one of you, including our city manager, including anyone here who's from the planning department, and anyone who's on the planning commission, to come share with me the view of the construction at, I believe it's 49 and 51, but you can find it easily, I'm sure, and we can go walk by. Take it into consideration when you're thinking about building and planning ordinances and what Mill Valley will look like in coming years. Thank you.
Cornelia Avenue, 49 and 51, Cornelia Avenue.
All right, I'm going to read from one of the cards. So this is a question that maybe Councilmember McCauley can take a stab at. Why is repaving the parking lot at the golf course clubhouse more important than repaving Buena Vista, which is the access to the golf course? The potholes in paving on Buena Vista make it unsafe for children and adults to traverse at a reasonable speed.
You guys are teasing me because you know how much I like to talk about potholes and how much I think about them. So the city has a very sophisticated program that looks at every single road in town, and what they're attempting to do is to preserve the streets for the longest period of time possible for the least amount of money involved. And first off, thank you for passing Measure H last year. That's a significant additional amount of funding that we have as a city. Basically what they do each year is they look through every single road. I believe the Buena Vista is on the plan for this year, is that correct? No, not this year, soon though? Okay, all right. But basically the way it works is every road's looked at, and the idea is that when roads are still in decent shape, say every 7 years or so, you do what's called a slurry seal, and that's a limited level of repair, and what that does is it extends the life of the road for a lot longer. You can do that roughly 3 times. People usually say, why are you doing that road when it looks okay? Why don't you do a road that's really awful? Well, once the roads become awful, they stay awful. So the idea is you spend your money first on keeping the good roads and the okay roads good and okay, and then you take the money you have left to deal with the remaining roads. I can tell you, based on the studies that were performed before Measure H was approved, and with City Council's commitment to fund $400,000 a year for road repair, between the 1.7 million that Measure H provides for both roads and for fire protection, and the money the city's providing, and the new money which came from SB1, which was passed at the state level, over the next 6, 7, 8 years, you're going to see a remarkable improvement in roads. As to why one road was picked over another, that's really DPW's responsibility. Council doesn't try to get in and get too directly involved in that, because then otherwise only our streets get paid. But I can tell you that if you ever go to that golf clubhouse, that parking lot was just, it needed it. It was pretty dangerous before. So I guess that's my short answer. Andy, do you have anything to add?
Just that we coordinated with the sewer work and with other underground utility work.
If you didn't hear, Andy also mentions it, which is true, is it coordinated with both sewer and other underground work so that we do this in a coordinated way.
And then maybe one other thing to add, John. Part of Buena Vista actually is in our plan that's coming to the council on Monday, but that sort of also indicates how some of the stuff gets sliced and diced. So the portion of Buena Vista that is really a candidate for that slurry seal, for that more minor work, is something that will be taken forward. The other portion, which I'm sure is what the resident was talking about, the part that's really in poor shape, that's the one that really needs reconstruction, so that's a much more expensive project, and that'll have to wait for a future date.
One more thing on that, just to give you a sense of it. For every dollar you spend on slurry sealing, it costs you $10 to do a complete road repair. So the idea is you spend all those dollars so you avoid those tens, but then what you do with the money left is you knock those tens down a little bit each year. And 10 years from now, we should have a measure of roads. It's called the Paved and Condition Index, the PCI. It will be in the 80s within 10 years. So thanks to your support with Measure H, you are going to see a substantial improvement. But each year it gets better. Hopefully you've noticed the last 2 or 3 years there have been substantial improvements also.
Hi there, my name is Gail Delaney. I live on Manzanita Place. I love it. I've been here for 30 years. I haven't traveled much using the airport or bus in the last 5 or 6. Then we were taking some foreign friends back to the bus. I was going to drop them off or be with them at the Manzanita Avenue bus stop. And I was told by 2 different people, one a cab driver and someone else, that there's a lot of crime there and you don't want to stop and wait. For years, I'd go and sit there for an hour or 2. Sometimes I'd be early, waiting for the bus to come by myself. Never occurred to me to be afraid that something horrible would happen. Oh, these things have happened. I can't remember now what they were. This was last summer. So we took the people to that awful bus stop right on the freeway, going down. It's sort of nice to be under the freeway and wait there. It's peaceful. Could someone tell me, is there higher crime? Is that something they have to worry about? Is that a rumor? Officer Angel?
Chief Bernal, do you mind grabbing the mic?
I knew him 30 years ago. He came to my house knocking, looking for the crook who'd sold us our house. And I said, oh, Angel, what a wonderful name for a policeman, 30 years ago.
I knew him 30 years ago when he was my DARE teacher at Park School.
Thank you, Mayor.
Very handsome guy, too. I thought I moved into the right town.
With regards to the Manzanita lot, which is in the sheriff's jurisdiction, they do have some car break-ins from time to time. I was out that way probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and somebody had indicated that the lights in the parking lot were not functioning. So I went online and did the notification to Caltrans to have somebody take care of that, and followed it up with a phone call as well. So hopefully the lighting will be on, and when I was out that way a couple of weeks ago, I did notice the sheriff's deputies driving through the lot. So
Has there been violent crime there? Could people be nabbed or hurt?
No.
That hasn't
Nothing
happened.
like that. Worst case scenario would be like every once in a while a car might get broken into.
No, great.
Okay,
Thank you so much, because we have some other visitors coming, and I didn't want to do the wrong thing.
Great. I'm going to grab another comment card question here. So this resident asks, was there ever an ordinance in Mill Valley preventing a neighbor from planting trees that will grow up into and block your view. What can be done to prevent this? So because it starts with the was there ever, we've actually got a 4th generation Mill Valleyan here on the council who I think can hopefully answer this.
Was there ever a tree ordinance to prohibit blocking views? No, we never had one, and my parents planted some pine trees and definitely blocked our view to our Mount Tam. So I know this is a topic for quite a few residents who live up in the hills, and we've talked about it. We do have some new ordinances we came up with. A view ordinance, we haven't gone down that path yet because Mill Valley loves its trees, but we are hoping neighbors can work with neighbors on maybe addressing topping trees themselves, working with the city on it, but at this point we haven't gone down that direction to address the view ordinance scenario. So it really comes down to neighbors helping out each other to hopefully when they plant new trees, ask them, hey, those kind of trees are growing right there, if they grow 40, 50, 100 feet, can we make an agreement where, you know, at a certain height we can get it topped, or maybe help defer the tree to another location, so.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine Hooper. I've only lived here 30 years, unlike many of you who've spent a lifetime here. How many of you went to the Memorial Day Parade this weekend? Really nice. One of the things I love about our small town is that we can do these things and they're very meaningful. But I've noticed over the years, and again, I work with the military quite a bit in my consulting practice, is a real lack of military presence in our Memorial Day Parade. And after all, Memorial Day is to honor those who are currently serving as well as those who have fallen. So it's my hope that whoever, and I don't know who organizes the parade, can do a bit more. Thank God they didn't do it this year, we didn't have enough room, but in the future, if we could really reach out to veteran communities to organize some participation and bring the horses back, but not this year.
So I'm going to have Councilmember Wickham weigh in on this. I do want to say we had a beautiful ceremony before the parade started at Lytton Square. The Outdoor Art Club actually chipped in and redid the plaque that was there for Lytton Barber, who was Mill Valley's first casualty in a war. That was World War I. In 1917, he actually passed away, and his family and the whole community were very impacted. So there was a beautiful ceremony for him rededicating that plaque. Thank you to the Outdoor Art Club. But Councilmember Wickham, did you want to weigh in?
If I could just say one thing I forgot to mention, I get nervous up here, is that the one thing we did do beautifully is we had one of our Mill Valley police officers speak. This darling young man who served 3 tours of duty in Afghanistan, and for those of you that were there at the flag raising, it was quite an awesome thing to think that we still have people in harm's way doing it. Our people in our community and serving our police force. So thank you for including that.
Yes, Officer Maxwell did a phenomenal job.
My only comment on that is, you know, if you lived here in Mill Valley in the 60s, we had a U.S. Air Force Base in Mount Tam, and actually the Air Force Base, their children came to our schools here, and we had a very strong presence in Marin County with the military. About 4 or 5 years ago, during this parade, I got with my sister and I said, you know, the Memorial Day Parade, or Mill Valley Weekend as we called it, is getting kind of funky. Now, Mill Valley is funky, but, you know, I felt strongly we should recognize our vets. And that's when we actually started this flag raising ceremony at the start of the parade. My sister, myself, and then I talked to Larry, and we've been doing that for 4 to 5 years now. We have the wreath down there. We recognize those who have passed away, who served our country. And I agree with you, but, you know, this is Mill Valley, and we try to do our best to accommodate everyone here. But we had a very strong presence back in the 60s and 70s, and as the military pulled out of Marin County, it kind of, you know, left our area. But I have 5 kids. I remind them why we have Memorial Day, and, you know, our police officers and firefighters, and the importance of, you know, why our country is safe. So if you guys want to do more for Memorial Day weekend, you got to step it up and you raise your hand saying, hey, let's get, you know, the military down or something. But I don't know about that. So that's my...
Yeah, I'll just point out, this is also a privately organized parade. They apply for a city permit, of course. But if you have any requests for, you know, who you want to see in the parade, or if you want to help out, I would contact Larry the Hat downtown and tell him, because he's in charge of really organizing the whole thing.
Hello, my name is Rebecca. I live on Poets Hill behind Hockey Park. I think we need to find ways to bring more community awareness to senior citizens in Mill Valley. People who've lived here and worked here for decades, who own their own homes but who are on limited income, and how they're being treated by newcomers to our community, whom I'll just say diplomatically have more commercially oriented values, just to ensure that the newcomers to our community are treating these senior citizens with respect and consideration when it comes to, you know, boundary issues, property issues, trespassing issues, etc. Thank you.
So I'm happy to pass that suggestion along to Garija Brilliant, our representative on the Commission on Aging, and also to take it up with the Marin Villages and our own Recreation Department. So thank you for that.
Evening, my name is Dan DePaula, and I live up off of Hazel in Monte Vista. And I was hoping that the city might figure out a way to be a little more harsh on people who are cutting down so many trees on their property. The home above us clear cut 22 trees. Now, because they were bays, you guys really didn't do anything about it. And the guy is a flipper who bought this house. He picked up a nice house for 850 grand. You find him 5,600 bucks. That's a tip in a restaurant for a guy like this. What happened to our property is we have two streams. We are below this property, and we have two streams that run through our backyard. The level of our streams raised 12 inches from all the topsoil that was washed down when there were no trees to break the rain hitting, and we had a pretty good rain. But it brought rocks and silt down, and, excuse me, I have Parkinson's and I start vibrating. But the water cascades down the back walls of our yard, and what happens is this silt and rocks fill the pools, so the water is no longer cascading and breaking the momentum, and the water is more or less coming straight down, headed for our house. So there's nothing that I can do. I can't sue this guy and tell him to bring in laborers for 2 weeks to clear the rocks out of my streams. But what I wish the city would do is don't be so slack on people who cut down bays. If they're going to cut down a couple of bays because they're fire hazards, that's okay, but I think the other thing that needs to be taken into consideration is the grade of their lot and what's going to happen with that topsoil. They are causing erosion problems that aren't even being taken into this equation, and I think that they should be sued for erosion. Getting sued for trees is something that the tree is cut down and the tree is over with. Thank you.
Thank you. And
So I'm going to ask for an answer to that comment from our Planning Director, Vince Smith, please.
Thank you for that comment. It is an issue that we as a planning department recognize. We brought a handout actually tonight that explains the new tree ordinance that the council just adopted just over a month ago, or about a month ago. The fines and what we were doing was approaching a change to the ordinance to specifically address the removal of trees. I agree with Dan that the fee the fine that we could charge was not nearly close enough to what it should be given the damage that was done to the hillside. Unfortunately, our hands are tied at that time. I think the information in the new ordinance will be substantially better. It will address that issue. Just to understand that one issue, I did call the Regional Water Quality Control Board. They have a site inspector that comes to see if certain activities like that rise to the level of impact to a stream at any type, whether it's a blue line stream or not. That individual did inspect the site and did not find that what was done was rose to the level of having a state fine applied to that property owner. So we did try to right that wrong, if you will, at least through the rules that we have in place. So I think if you grab a handout, you'll see that our current rules are much more stout than a couple months ago.
I think it would be great if those people who caused that erosion were held responsible for the properties downhill.
And Vin, could you
Now
just...
I'm left holding the bag.
Vin, could you just maybe mention some of the monetary fines and how that is, how those are arrived at?
That's great.
In our new ordinance.
Specifics.
Just general.
I would say...
Looks like Carrie might be able to.
Yeah, definitely Carrie can. She's the one that wrote it and has it all in her brain.
So this is Carrie's response from one of our senior planners.
So for illegal removal of trees, which is more than 3 trees within a 12-month period, for a non-heritage tree, which would include the bays, larger than 6 inch, the minimum fine would be $1,000, or the value of the tree, whichever is greater. And if it's a heritage tree, the minimum fine is $5,000 for the value of the tree, whichever is greater.
And how's that value
The International Society of Arborists has a standardized way of determining value, which takes into account the species, the health, the location, and the surrounding habitat.
There was also a doubling, as I recall, in that ordinance, right?
Yeah, for repeat offenders.
I mean, if they did more than, if they took out 10 trees, it wasn't just the $1,000 per tree, wasn't it?
It's for if it was all in one instance, then that would be just a single fine, but I believe this would have been a substantial fine for this particular instance because of the number of trees involved, and the minimum $1,000 per tree. But yes, if they sort of learn their lesson and then go do it again, then it's an increased fine.
Then what happens to that money?
We actually, well, I think as a fine, it would go into the general fund, I believe. But we also do have replacement requirements, and if it's an illegal removal, I believe the replacement requirement is 3 trees for every tree removed, and if they can't, because of fire purposes, and we coordinate very closely with the fire department, if they can't replant them all on site, then they do have to pay into a tree fund as well as the fine, which would go for city tree plantings and plantings elsewhere in the city.
Thank you both. So I'm gonna go to the common question cards. This resident wants to know, why do streetlights on Miller stay lit 24/7? Andy, do you want to take that one?
Yes, this is a common question, unfortunately. I've got 2 answers. The first one is actually when you install new streetlights, you actually leave the lights on for usually a period of 7 to 10 days. That's called a burn-in period, to make sure the lights work as designed. Unfortunately, I can't use that excuse for these because a lot of them have been on for about 2 months, 3 months already. The truth of the matter is the logistics of the way the project was built has the controller and the irrigation controller and the electrical controller being installed as one of the last things, and that's simply because it's being placed in a location that was not available before. So once the controller gets installed, the lights will turn on and off automatically during dark periods of darkness, and that's expected to happen within the next month.
Great. Since nobody's lining up for questions, and I should probably give you all a heads up that we've got about 15 more minutes for questions. What does the city do to address unpermitted building in the setback? Who should be contacted, and what is the procedure for removal of such construction? Will the council's former planning commissioner take that one?
So if somebody builds in a setback area, they're going to contact a planning department and there will be a red tag, and eventually the property could be removed, right? If necessary. So don't do it.
My name is Fabrice Florin. I've been here 35 years, and I'd like to bring up the question from the first person who commented about SB 54 to provide a sort of safe environment for over 5% of Mill Valley residents are undocumented, and they live in fear of being deported and separated from their families. And I believe there's other people here who are also concerned about this. I'd like to ask them to stand up if they are concerned about this issue. Thank you. My question is, although we admire the police's admirable support of tolerance, why would the council not try to assuage the fears of those people? And why would we not send a clear signal to our community, to California and the world, that we welcome people regardless of their immigration status? It would be such a simple thing for the council to do. And I think that we have several Marin supervisors have already endorsed SB 54. The city of San Anselmo is on its way to backing it up, and other cities are as well. And so many of our citizens here share those values. It would be so simple for you guys to codify the practice that our police department already has in place, and let these people, why are they in fear? Would you like to live like that? So it'd be great if one of the council persons could respond to this. Thank you.
So I'll start by saying thank you for your comment. I noticed on the board, tolerance and respect actually got a whole lot of dots next to it as well. So I knew you weren't alone in this comment. I think that you are actually really linked. And maybe about a month ago, we took on the issue of tolerance and respect here in our community, based on activities that had happened here in the community. We'd had a rash of graffiti, I think about 6 of them being swastikas, around town, and many of them located in areas that are traversed by children on their way to school. So we were very, very concerned of that. We don't want any of our residents living in fear. In our mission statement, we say we want all of our residents to feel comfortable here and feel welcomed. We value having a diverse community here in Mill Valley. It's part of what makes Mill Valley so great. During the conversation on our tolerance and respect ordinance, we did hear some comments on sanctuary city status. At the time, there was some interest on the council to look at the issue and hear further comments on it. There wasn't broad consensus, but there was some interest. And we decided to break the 2 issues apart. We really wanted to focus solely on the acts that had happened here in Mill Valley already, the swastikas and negative comments and whatnot. We've actually formed a task force now that's being led by Councilmember McEntee that will go out in the community, and it's going to be formed of directly impacted folks who have had experiences here with intolerance. It's going to be a small committee, like I said, all directly impacted folks, many of whom are minorities. And they're going to go out to their respective communities and collect stories so that we can get kind of a grasp of what's going on here in town. While we were looking at passing this ordinance, several people, including Councilmember McEntee, shared with us experiences that were very troubling and really caused us to pause and say we want to know more about what's happening here in town. So I can tell you, I think we do care very deeply about residents. We don't want them living in fear or discomfort or being bullied. And we're taking steps to address, what is happening here in town. That task force is going to bring those experiences back to us as a council. We're also putting together a direct action plan, and there was a memo that went out to all of staff. In it, one of the items was that we had passed this ordinance wanting to make our town more tolerant, more respectful, restore our community character, or small town community character. So all of the department heads are putting their heads together and thinking about what they can do to make this a more tolerant community. We're going to have another presentation in a future council meeting where we'll talk about the direct action plan and take the input that we've had from that task force, as well as from all the department heads, as well as from our city clerk, who's doing a ton of research on what other cities are doing as well to make their communities more tolerant. It was very, very important to the entire council that whatever we do on this, that we actually give it some teeth, that we're actually taking actions that will lead to our community being more tolerant, more respectful, people not being in fear. So we're considering all sorts of things right now. And we're really trying to come at this from a community impact and have the voices of those who have been directly impacted leading the way. More questions?
Hi, Betsy Bickley. It's my understanding that in the general plan, there was a call for citizens committees on both the subject of the flood control plans and also on affordable housing. And I've spoken to a couple of you about the affordable housing before, but it was my understanding that in 2015 there was supposed to be a committee formed, and it seems to me that a citizen committee just might be able to be helpful in getting funds for affordable housing and help out and not just wait until money starts pouring in for the litigations. Thank you.
I'd be happy to respond, Betsy. So I don't recall that the general plan suggested forming a citizens committee around drainage or flood matters, although we will be forming an advisory group to help us with the flood control master plan that our Public Works Director, Andy Poster, mentioned. And so that's something we're going to get started right after the council authorizes this, which I hope will occur on Monday. We'll be looking for a group that will help us with some insight into drainage issues, probably some interest in environmental issues, because some of the drainage solutions have some ramifications to it from an environmental standpoint. So we'll be doing that. With respect to affordable housing, the general plan does recommend that we form an affordable housing advisory committee. The City Council actually discussed that just at their last meeting. We've been doing a lot of work around affordable housing, looking at different policies and regulations, including the formation of this advisory committee. So we recommended to the council that in the initial stage, the council itself serve in that capacity, and then as we develop some initial policies, we look to form an advisory group. That group would most likely meet on an ad hoc basis to come and provide information to the council on very specific policy questions. And so that's something that the council actually has discussed and we're moving forward with.
Hi there, Marty Caglin. I'm on Ralston. I'm sitting with some of my neighbors who live around me, and we live in an area where there are just lots and lots of trees that are growing up into our views and whatever. I read with interest your new tree ordinance, and I thank you very much for doing this summary because it really does clarify this. We had a couple of specific questions. In this it says there will be no topping. However, there are many of the neighbors who have topped trees to prevent a tree from getting so large that it's going to blow down on their house during a storm or for views. And this was all before there was this change in the ordinance. When a tree is topped, and it starts growing in, I'm told by the tree arborist that the tree becomes brittle and therefore might break. So what happens to all those trees, either by PG&E or by neighbors or whatever? They have been topped. That's the first question. And second, I was pleased to see in here that trees may be, even heritage trees, may be daylighted carefully, very carefully. And how is that process done? Do we go to the council and ask if the specific tree can be daylighted, or how does that work? So there are two questions there, please.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask on our planning director, Ben Smith, to answer that.
What happens to trees that have been topped? Those trees are still the property of that property owner. So the maintenance and care of those trees is the responsibility of that property owner. We, as city staff, don't inventory trees that have been topped. We've actually never had a practice of allowing them to be topped. I think that it's occurred, but when asked, we say that's not a proper treatment for a tree. So if you have a topped tree, that's your tree, you own it, and you need to maintain it accordingly. And I would suggest having it evaluated occasionally by an arborist to make sure that it's still in decent health and not at risk of breaking or falling. And then as far as selective trimming or daylighting, that is a practice that's acceptable. I would suggest that you apply for the tree permit through the planning department process, that you do consult with an arborist. We use a consulting arborist to do evaluations of requests for tree removals or tree trimming, but I would suggest that you consult with a certified arborist before you start selectively trimming any kind of tree.
Great, thank you. Hi, I'm Christina Mueller. Excuse me, I live over here in Alto, right by Edna McGuire. And when I came to the meeting last year, there was a line of people here asking about how to mitigate traffic getting onto 101 from Blythedale. But before I get to that, I want to just say thank you, whoever worked with Caltrans, for fixing the potholes. Across the overpass to Strawberry
Public
Hill.
Works Director
Thank you.
Andrew Foster.
Whoever made that happen so quickly, thank you. There was a lot of discussion last year at that time about perhaps putting a second lane down to get onto 101 North to take some of the traffic off of Blythedale. There was also talk of widening some parts there to make some additional cars come through the light faster. I just was wondering how things stood right now. Thank you.
Councilmember McCauley?
So, yeah, a lot of improvements actually already happened. Is Kate Stewart still here? I'd really like to shout out to Kate for taking a leadership role in getting the city of Mill Valley, Tiburon, Belvedere, and Caltrans all together. In fact, we're having another meeting tomorrow at 9:30. And over the last year, as a result of all that cooperation, a number of changes have been already made. Specifically on the east side of the freeway, there's been some substantial improvements to move traffic faster, and that results in more green time east-west. We also carefully studied the idea of allowing a little extra room on the southbound on-ramp to get over that white line there where people were going over the white line and getting tickets. We actually looked into that. Some detailed study was undertaken, and it was found that it was over $1 million to make that small change for 4 car lengths. It was shocking, but it was because of the road configuration and the way all the drainage worked, so we abandoned that. There is continuing discussion with regards to ways to make that overpass work better. We kind of worked through the low-hanging fruit in the last couple of years, and now we're working on the medium-level fruit. And literally the meeting tomorrow is about that. So there is a lot of continued detailed focus to make things better.
So while we're on the topic of traffic, we are lucky to have Councilmember Moulton Peters up here, who is an expert in everything smart train and transportation around Marin. So I would personally request just a little update on Smart Train and what's going on there.
So the Smart Train is continuing to finish the necessary testing of positive train control and switches and gates that come down. They are all run by sensitive computers, and all of it requires contact with the rail lines, talking to the computers, talking to the switches, and there are a few locations that still are not making the communication complete. And so until they get those last few technical gaps cleared up, the train is waiting to start operations. At their June 7th board meeting, which will be next week, I believe there will be an announcement as to when they're going to start. And I think for commuters coming in from Sonoma as well as parts of northern Marin, it'll be a great service.
Great, I'm gonna do 2 more questions here off the comment cards, and then we'll see if anybody else has a final question before we close out. So first, 500 Miller is affordable housing included and is building on a hillside that is known for slides. Hard to imagine. Comments, please. I'll see first Councilmember McCall. Maybe do you want to?
Yeah, Vanderworth project, that's 500 Miller, right, was approved through the planning department a while back before the rules changed. And I really want to emphasize how significant the rule change has been with regards to infill, as it's called. Under the old rules, if you had 9 units or less, you didn't have to build a affordable unit. All you had to do is pay some money into a fund, okay? This last year, we made a change that says that if you build 4 units or more, you must build an affordable unit. So in today's environment, if you have a fourplex, one of those units will be affordable. Vanderworth, as I recall, it came to the end of its period. So it is now, it was approved under the old rules, but it never started its construction, and therefore those old rules are no longer applicable to it. So a new project that would be brought forward would have to be addressed under the new rules. Not true.
Planning directors.
Excuse me, he just made the timer. Yeah, so he created a final map, he being the owner, created what's called a final map in the lexicon of subdivision of property. So he has secured his approvals. Those approvals were granted a number of years ago, right around the beginning of the recession. The state of California granted automatic exceptions to any project that was approved at the time with his types of approvals. And so those approvals were extended over time, and he just made it underneath the timeline to be able to build the project that the city approved back in 2010, I believe, 2011. And so he is authorized to build a 9-unit townhouse project that has ground floor parking and 2 floors above it of residential unit and 1 commercial building that's closer to Reed.
And if you could just weigh in on the landslide issue.
So there was a landslide that occurred upslope and sort of southeast of the parcel a number of years ago. There's been quite a bit of structural engineering and soils and geotechnical engineering that's occurred to create the retaining wall that was approved, to create the pad for these units. That wall anticipates, understands, if you will, that there's a potential slide, or there was a slide that was off slope, and is designed in a way to accept that current condition. So the experts have looked at it. We've done a plan check of it. We've sent out to our subcontractor and geotechnical engineer to double check to make sure those calculations are right, and everybody's in agreement that they are.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick question, I know it's getting late. I was wondering what's the best process to determine how a dead tree should be taken down if it's pretty possibly on city land, but could possibly be on private, but I think it's really on city land.
And you think it's really dead, right?
And I think it's near Jim's property, or let me know.
So I would say...
It's definitely dead.
Okay.
I know that one.
Okay, good. So we get that question periodically, particularly if the tree's really big. I think it's on city land.
It's definitely on city
Yeah,
land.
I would say the best thing to do would be to contact the Public Works Department. Tony Boyd is our park supervisor. He's a certified arborist. And so many times Tony will go out, take a look at the tree, confirm, yes, that's a dead tree, and then help to determine whose property it's on. So I would say start with the Public Works Department.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to take the last comment card now, and it is, why do we not have any roundabouts on a major intersection throughout the city? It would speed up the traffic flow and would be a lot less polluting. I'll pass it.
So when we were doing the Miller Avenue planning several years ago, the roundabout question came up, and there was not enough public support to install them. It's certainly possible to revisit that now and see if public support has increased. In the meantime, we have put a couple small ones in town, one by the library, another one on Molino, Cascade. And that's my thought, is put in some more small ones, and then we can all adapt and adopt. So.
Thank you. So we've come to the end of the hour of questions. We'll still be around afterwards for a little while, and of course you can always reach out to any of us via email. I do have a couple questions for you. Who here has signed up for MB Connect? That's our newsletter. Department heads don't count. Sorry, guys. All right. Who here has visited our new website? Now, our new website, which I'm very proud of, and I believe this council is very proud of, is being shown off at the community engagement table over there. And it's your online access to all the information you could possibly want. You can also watch us streaming our meetings. You can look up old agendas, look up old minutes, watch old videos on what the council is doing or the planning commission. There's a ton of information there. And in addition to there being a ton of information, it's actually really user-friendly now. I can barely turn on the computer, but I can navigate the website. So I encourage you all to stop by the community engagement table, take a look at it, or go home and play with it. There's a lot of information there, and a lot of the time you can get your answers to your questions really quickly there. So thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. Thank you to all the staff for staying late and answering all these questions. We appreciate it.